Good evening, everyone. How are we doing? Chris, Frank, you there?
We are here.
I'm
here
yeah.
at least.
Yeah. Welcome.
Just finding the unmute button.
Classic. Welcome to this Monday's Mix Off Monday, where we are going to talk about Townsend Labs' recent microphone Song of Love competition, or Spell of Love, should I say, mix competition, which all of us have done a mix on and all of us have entered. So just quick introductions. I'm Mark from Marler Audio. I do an online mixing and mastering service. You can find that at www.marleraudio.com. So if you've got any stuff that needs mixing, please send it through. I'll pass you over to Frank now. He'll introduce himself.
Yep, my name's Frank. I go by my mixer name, if you like, is Frank Leonard Walker. And you can find my work and my services at frankleonardwalker.com. And yeah, I do a similar thing to Mark, working from home, working from a home studio, doing mixing, doing audio edits. And yeah, so you'll hear my mix today at some point.
We hope.
Yeah.
And Chris, yourself?
Yep. My name's Chris Kamery. I'm from Red Oxide Studio here in the USA. Very similar. I do mixing and mastering from my home studio. I can, have the distinct pleasure of saying I was not involved in the Green Day American Idiot record like everyone else in the industry, but so you may not know me from that, but still here doing good music, same as these other two guys.
All right, that indeed. So, just quickly about Mix Off Monday. So obviously you've got three different engineers all doing online mixing and mastering, all got various wealth of knowledge and experience in the industry. And the whole point of Mix Off Monday for us, ideally, is to have artists and bands come to us, give us one of your tracks that you need mixing and mastering. So you would give us the session, with that being Logic, Pro Tools, take your pick. Most of us have pretty much got all of the doors that are out there nowadays, I think, bar one or two, but we can sort all of that out. So you send that to us. We then each have a mix of it for free, and we master it for free. And then we would then present the show, and we would feature you on the show. We'd interview you, and we would talk about it, and talk about your history and where you come from and where people can find you and what your influences are and stuff. And then we would then present you with the mixes independently, and we would then each discuss, like we're going to in a minute with this track, we'd each discuss our own production techniques and our thought processes and ethoses behind why we did certain production decisions and stuff. And at the end of it, you would then get to choose your favourite, which one you would prefer to use for your streaming site or your CD or whatever you like. And then the idea being, we're linked up with a radio station called XRP in Ashford, which is an independent artists radio station, and we would then feature that track that you'd chosen on that radio show the following Sunday. So that's the deal. It's basically free, for everyone to send their stuff into. If you send it, the link is in the description below for all of this, but if you send it to info@marleraudio.com, and then we can get in touch, and then if there's anything missing, we'll let you know, and then we'll go from there and book a slot in that's convenient to you guys, and then do this show with you. Obviously, we haven't got a client at the moment, so the idea being is that we would then enter a mix competition, such as this Townsend Labs one, and then each do a mix and present it. So I'll pass it on to Chris to talk a bit more about this particular competition, maybe.
Yeah. And the other thing I'd ask is, we're working off a mixed competition today just because it was handy and ready and available for us. But in 2 weeks, we are doing another one for The Goods Gone, which they'll be here with us. So 2 weeks from tonight, there will be another one of these, and that's the plan, is to do it every 2 weeks. Based on all of you great people just sending in music for us to work with. So
yeah, that's on the 9th of November we're doing that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the Townsend Labs one was pretty interesting. Spell of Love mixed competition was pushed pretty heavily by a few outlets, but it has a very interesting arrangement. It was done by Justin, and I forget the other guy's name, Turbin, that's gonna bug me for a second.
I'm gonna put it up,
Cassidy. Yep, Cassidy and Jason Turbin.
That's it, yeah.
and Cassidy's a 5 times Grammy nominated producer. So it was a great track to start working with. Very, I kind of took away from it a very New Orleans dirty jazz type feel.
Yep.
And so albeit a little bit of a shorter song, it's clocks in a little over 2 minutes, but kind of a nice Halloween kind of spooky jazz, maybe a little Creole in there, depending on how you want to look at it. The other interesting thing was, since this was sponsored by Townsend Labs, it was predominantly used with the Sphere microphone from Townsend Labs, which gives you some options through their proprietary plugin. You can actually change the polar response and the key attributes of the microphones as it's attributed to the track.
Yeah,
so
it basically gives you like a locker of like hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of mics, which for us mere mortals is normally beyond the realms of possibility to even achieve, right? So it is a sense of, it's a bit of voodoo wizardry going on in that plugin. It's amazing. Sorry, anyway, carry on, Chris. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And so that's something that we'll go through probably with each of our as we introduce each of our songs, the selections that we made, more so than just, hey, I threw a compressor on it. It's, I had to choose a microphone because you couldn't just use the tracks as they were. The way that the audio came through, you had to run it through the plugin first in order to get even just the correct sound. And then, based on what microphone you choose, it's gonna give you some color and some ideas. So I think that's about all I had to say about it. Frank, you had any other points on the song?
Yeah, it was a really interesting mixed competition, really, just because of that whole Townsend Labs plugin. And it almost threw us a bit into the recording side slightly, having to choose the microphones. In a very basic way, we were sort of influencing the recording.
Yeah, it was everything bar the placement, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, and we had... But even then, you could change, the proximity effect. So you could essentially make it sound like it was closer or further away, especially with the stereo mics. Although I didn't actually do this myself, but you could change the phase relationship between, like, the stereo recording. So how close the left mic is compared to how close the right mic is. So you did have quite a bit of control. And we were speaking earlier, and I'm sure we'll go into more detail about it when we discuss the microphones, but it was quite a weird mix in terms of once we actually went through and picked our microphones, it was sounding kind of pretty much there. It was like the first stage of the mix was picking the microphones, and that was half the work, really. So yeah, it was interesting. It may be... It's a bit weird. I would have liked to have picked them kind of in the recording stage if I could have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, on the way in.
It was kind of like a bit of work to be like, I've got another microphone to choose.
Yeah.
But it's disconnected from that experience of recording.
I think what I liked about that though is the fact that it was non-destructive. Like when you're when you're committing to tape, you've got to be 100% certain that what you're putting down is going to fit right in the mix. And what I like about this is that you can use something to get a vibe. Obviously, if we was recording it and tracking it, you can use something to get a vibe and sort of give someone the idea of what it's going to sound like, which is always good for a recording process. But obviously, when it comes to the mix scenario, you're not having to over EQ or over compress. You can literally just ping through the mics to then find which one fits best or highlights that track, that instrument better in the mix without actually changing anything else dynamically or EQ wise, which I think's just I really like the fact that you can do it post. But
totally. It's so, like you say, so quick to just be like, rather than like, I'm not sure the ribbons are working here. Let's go into our locker and pull out some, valve condensers.
Yeah.
It takes a bit more work than just clicking a button.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add on that was, at least in my circumstance, and granted, I'm the one PC user out of, I know both of you are on Macs, but that plugin was so heavy that, yeah, I'd take a listen through on a track, kind of figure out what kind of microphone I kind of liked, and then I would print it down, and then, yeah, I stuck with those decisions just because to
Right,
run
yeah.
20 instances of that plugin was not going to work on my system.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's
so
fair.
you didn't get to like listen to all your choices as a whole until
Yeah.
the end once you've chosen.
Yeah.
So that was almost a bit more like recording, wasn't it? In a way.
Yep. Yeah, I
You
just
have to pick your mic and stick with it.
Oh, absolutely, and I think there is something to be said, and even mixing of, where you hear people getting stuck on a mix for, months at a time, and I'm just like, no, you just need to pick a direction and go and make it work.
Yeah.
Because if it's a passion project and it's something that it's done when it's done, fine. But for all of us who work for clients, all three of us, there's a deadline. There's a time where this just needs to be done. So you got to pick a direction and go.
I think Addy, who's going to be featuring on the 9th of November with us, so just so people are aware, on the 9th of November, we've also got a guest mix engineer, Addy, from Hit the Road. I think it's Hit the Road Studios. Basically, he's converted a Winnebago into a studio and is travelling around Europe recording artists and bands left, right and centre. It's phenomenal. And he's a lovely guy and a phenomenal engineer. He's going to come on and feature with us as well. So when we do that show, not only are you going to have the band here, you're going to have us three here with the three mixes, and you're going to have Addy as well, which is going to be, I'm really looking forward to this one. It's going to be special. But he's very much of that ilk. He's very much of a make a decision, stick to it, move on. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of, and once again, I don't want to speak for him because he's not here. But I'm pretty certain from all the things I've seen of him online is that he's a very much make a decision, commit to it, move on, and make quick, fast, considered decisions. But don't keep faffing around,
Yeah, and at the same point, I think that we're kind of all of that ilk as well.
Yep.
And if you listen to all three of our mixes, they're wildly different.
Oh, very
Yet
much so. Yeah.
We didn't sit there and scrutinize over that last quarter dB on one instrument, thinking that it's going to destroy my mix. It's okay. That's in a good spot. I like that. Let's go to the next thing.
Yep.
Let's pull the whole thing together. So, you still get a wide variety of variation mixer to mixer, and still be efficient about it. I won't say quick. I'll say efficient.
I mean, once again, that also depends on the artist. I've worked with some artists where that approach doesn't work, and they are very picky, and they've got some of them have got some great ears, and they will pick out that they want automation in this particular section, on this particular vocal, on this line. So once again, it depends on the client. But in this instance, obviously, we're not necessarily liaising with the clients. It's more to showcase the artist's talents, our talents, and obviously then if the artist likes what we do, then there's those discussions that can be had later on down the line if you wanted the rest of the album done, or just little bits tweaked on the final mix that you liked. That once again, like I say, is a further discussion to be had post. But for the
Absolutely.
for the purposes of this show, it is you get what you get. Do you know what I mean? And it's
Just out of curiosity, did anyone go back and change a microphone after they'd? I assume everyone did commit at some point.
I didn't.
I did not.
I did not commit.
Oh, you did not commit?
No.
You had
Oh,
it-
I printed everything down, but I did not go back and do any changes. I hid and inactivated those tracks in Pro Tools and just stripped it down to the ones that actually, were
so
printed.
I done the same. I committed them. But I'm curious, Mark, if you had the plugins there, once you started mixing, did you ever say, like, after putting an EQ on something, try going back?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll talk about this more when we get to it. But
sure.
my process was, I started with the vocal to get the vocal set to a level and a certain vibe, and then once I got that vibe, I moved on, and then obviously started EQing my drums and everything else. But then I would listen to the mix overall, and if I found that something wasn't quite popping out, obviously I could go and change the EQs or the compressions, but I thought, let's have a play.
Yeah.
Like, and started
Make the most.
just literally flicking through the mics and the polar patterns and everything else until I suddenly found, actually, selecting a different mic solved all of those issues. Like I wouldn't have to do anything else. It would suddenly lift it in the mix and make it sit better without really having to do any kind of surgery to it. Do you know what I mean? It just kind of, and it was kind of like, well, that sounds good. Like, why should I really change it? Like, and so that was my approach really, and then that was what I committed to, was that rather than too much faffing. And I spent more of my time on being the creative bits in there, as it were. That was kind of where I was at with it. But what I found amazing about this track was it's just so well recorded. Like, you literally didn't have to put anything on it. You could just set it up, set the faders to 0, and it sounded good. And no matter which instrument you pushed up, like, because you were thinking like, oh, maybe the horns aren't too loud there, I'll push them up a bit. But then all of a sudden you push them up too far and it would change the dynamic of the mix, but it just felt right. No matter what you did, it just felt right.
It was just a different mix, wasn't it? It wasn't
and
bad.
That's, you get to these great recorded pieces of work and you realize how much is in the hands of the musicians, beyond anything else. Like, you get a good guitar player and it's in their hands. Like, they, literally, it's their hands make that tone. And you can change out gear on them all day and it still sounds like them, if you get a real accomplished guitarist. So I think with a lot of these, you just had grade A instrumentalists who know the genre. They just know what they were going for and really turned out some great tracks.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's how you get Grammy nominated as well.
Well, this is true. Yeah. I'm still waiting for mine.
I think
it's in the mail.
But just quickly on this, obviously on this competition, for those that are engineers and are watching now or post, I think there's still about a week, isn't there, till the closing date? I think it ends on the 30th.
4 days.
Is it 4 days? Okay. So there's 4 days. You could probably put a mix out in those 4 days. It was probably one of the quickest ones I've ever mixed. So if you want to enter, the link is once again in the description below. It takes you straight to the competition page. You can download the WAVs and the stems and go away and mix to your heart's content and enter the competition yourself. And there is a Sphere L22 microphone up for grabs, so well worth it. It's like 1,500 quid's worth of gear, and I'd love one in my studio. I know, Frank, you've got one in yours, haven't you?
Yeah, so it was... This is actually my first mic purchase as well.
Nice. Nice.
So yeah, I went all out.
Yeah, everything else is going to be a disappointment after this.
Which because the studio I built it's the smallest studio, so it's mainly for me mixing, but I do want to just record a few things in here. So some vocals, some guitar, stuff like that. So I didn't need a microphone cabinet full of different microphones to be able to use them multiple, at the same time. But I wanted a versatile mic that would work on a guitar cab and would work on different vocalists. And yeah, so I went for this.
Yeah,
great.
It's well, you're hearing me talk through it now. It hasn't actually got any of the processing in, so I'm just using the front.
Just
capsule.
literally the clean as it is. Yeah, nice.
So yeah, it's a nice sounding, clean clean microphone anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, done a few recording sessions with it, and yeah, it's just. It's all in the plug-in really to really.
Yeah.
Take control of it.
Be nice to have 2 of them though, right?
Exactly, yeah. It's the only reason I entered.
5 of them. Just like everything up with it.
Yeah, your match set for your overheads.
Yeah.
I'd like one for every single instrument, because you've literally got the whole world covered. Like, it's just... But anyway, right, so moving on. Is there anything else you guys want to add before we move on and play the first version?
Don't think so. I think all discussions will come out once we hear each other's, won't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're ready for the first one.
Yeah, cool. Okie dokie. So this first one's going to be Frank's version. So I'm just going to mute my mic and press play. Hope you enjoy.
Waiting in the dark for a lover, spinning silken threads of seduction. The web that she's weaved on this very eve, tainted by the spell of love. She whispered what would be my fantasy. Then she took me to a place among the trees, in the still of the night, underneath the pale moonlight, tainted by the spell of love, of love. She could be the woman of my dreams. I wanna wake up and see her lay next to me. She could be the woman of my dreams. I wanna wake up and see her lay next to me. In the still of the night, underneath the pale moonlight, tainted by the spell of love, tainted by the spell of love, tainted by the spell
Awesome stuff.
There we are.
Yeah, really nice.
That's my mix.
Good job.
Cheers, guys.
Really nice. So,
Yeah, so I'll talk a bit about where I was coming from, I guess.
yeah.
So obviously it was a kind of spooky, bluesy. I don't know, what genre would you call it initially?
Well, it's meant to be for Halloween, isn't it? So yeah,
Yeah,
spooky,
it's-
bluesy.
Yeah, kind of a New Orleans jazz,
Yeah,
but
Mm.
Halloween-ish, you know, Day of the
Creole
Dead,
vibe.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's obviously what it's supposed to be. But parts of it, especially the guitar and the vocals in the beginning, with the chorus on the guitar that they had, or the, whatever spaced effect it was, it just reminded me of some sort of modern pop productions. So that I just thought, why not? Let's try and make it a poppier version.
Yep.
So most of the things I was doing was to try and make it pop, so it's quite a kind of shiny mix.
Yep. Yep. The vocal technique that you've put on it as well, like with the repeats and then the doubles and the delays on it.
Yeah, exactly. So just
yeah.
a few kind of fancy bits.
Yeah,
Well, it's
I
not
like,
that fancy a delay, but
I like after the first verse, there's like a stop, there's like a gap in the music, which isn't
Yeah.
actually there on the track. But
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for noticing.
yeah,
Yeah, so I took out a few of the drum hits in places where it just felt like, yeah, again, to make it that kind of poppy thing where you have like little drops in the beat or the music to then pick up. So I went through and just done tiny things like that. And then it wasn't my initial decision, but at some point working through, I was just like, okay, when that drum fill hits, I want it to be like the modern Phil Collins, basically.
yeah,
Sound big,
Yeah.
and really kind of make an impact at the end.
yep,
And you might have heard the clarinet, which sounds more like a electric guitar. It is really hard to distort a clarinet. I literally had a Sans amp on it, and just like gain, preamp, buzz, crunch, everything was like at full just to actually get it sounding like.
So was that a
ripping.
clarinet at the end? I thought you actually
Yeah.
put electric guitar on it.
No, it's a clarinet.
No!
Yeah.
I was going to congratulate you on the wicked guitar part. Like,
It did sound guitar at first,
Yeah,
for
you
sure.
sneaky, you
Weirdly,
sneaky.
the I guess it was either like the finger paddles or like the breath of the actual clarinet
Yep.
player had that same sort of, you know, when your guitar's on full distortion and you like
Mhm.
kind of get ready to play and it has that like
It-
yeah, it just that happened on the clarinet as well, so it really sounds like a guitar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've never guessed.
to me it sounded like full on 80s metal guitar.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
now,
no,
now
all you
that
need
makes
is a clarinet.
sense. Why at the end you can really hear the breathiness and the pads actually hitting the instrument. Because I was going to say, how did you pull that out? And now I know. Wow, awesome
Yeah.
stuff.
So yeah, and obviously distorted the bass at one point as well. So a lot of it was like point changes. So there's just something that would happen, but it wouldn't be like, okay, the bass is distorted this whole time. And same for the clarinet, you know, it's just at that point, distorted bass at that point. So as you're listening, hopefully the idea anyway was you get little drips of interest
Yep.
happening at different points. And like the drums, you know, I don't parallel process too much, but I did for those drums.
Yep.
Just to again make them pump at the end. And yeah, different delays and reverbs coming in at different points to sort of.
I must admit, I
keep
like
the movement.
I like how present the snare is in it. The snare sounds really nice, cuts right through that mix.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely. Yeah, really impactful.
Yeah,
Kind of jealous that I didn't bring mine up a bit more after listening to
yeah.
that.
I was questioning because there's the two snares. There's the room snare, which is like the roll.
Yep.
And then the other snare, which is the kind of 2 and 4, sorry, hit.
Yep.
And yeah, I was contemplating which one to sort of go for to be louder, but obviously I went for the 2 and 4, and then the snare room, the rolls, they're almost like tiny little accents, not accents, you know, ghost notes. Virtually.
Yeah.
Makes
Yeah.
them fairly low.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I done. I done some more fake vocal harmonies as well.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention that. Sorry, that is written down on my paper here about your harmonies at the beginning there.
Yeah, I almost didn't want to do it because I don't want to make that a sort of go-to, like.
What
that's
did you
Walker
use for that?
tradition. That was Melodyne again,
It was Melodyne, yeah.
but yeah, it just felt like something could happen on that third line, like you know, for the vocals to get a little bit bigger. I think it was the third line.
It really works. It really works.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, someone who doesn't, for like me, doesn't have Melodyne. You're always looking for ways of, okay, do I double this? Do I break off another track and put some other effect on it, or to just keep that vocal interesting? Sometimes you just need to build it up in the verse, or
Yeah.
vice versa.
Yeah, totally. The other thing I did is I was again just adding interest at points is playing with the vocal breaths,
Yeah.
which normally we try and
Remove.
remove or contain. But like right at the start, I just had it going like as a bit of a swirl.
Yeah.
And then I really increased the volume just before the drum fill. I can't remember the line now. But it's not really a breath, but he just holds that note and it goes really quite raspy. And I just really increased that volume.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, I mean for me, I just like it from that quiet bit at the end to the loud bit at the end. That's my,
Yeah.
If I could just play those like 20 seconds, that's my favourite bit.
To be honest with you, I like it all. I really like the beginning, obviously because I've been so into my own little echo chamber, as it were, with my own version. So to hear how you did yours was just like, wow, yeah, that's class. I really liked it.
Yeah, cheers. There's something that I struggled with, and something I don't quite like about it, but I might bring this up after the yours play because it's something I like about both yours, really, which I feel
Okay.
mine's lacking a little bit in.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll save it for then, I think.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Anything else to add, gents?
I mean, it's quite funny actually. The roaring clarinet solo. Again, that was quite a last minute addition, because I sort of had everything roughly balanced at the end, and I'm like, what's this part doing? Because there's quite a lot of kind of brass and woodwind instruments.
So for everyone out there who hasn't seen the tracks, I mean, there's 2 trumpet tracks, 3 trumpet tracks, or 4, actually.
I think it's 4, yeah.
There's a sax. There's a 2 piano tracks, 2 mellotrons, and 4 clarinet tracks. You know, so there's just a lot there in somewhat overlapping frequencies. And so I know.
And they're all sort of playing different things as well. So it doesn't come across as a whole part on its own. It's like lots of little different parts.
Yes. So did you cut any of those parts out?
No, actually, I was doing a lot of. I'd let one part take the lead, if you like, at certain points, and then duck it back down. So there'll just be little motifs which would have their moment, and then duck away. And that was just whatever I sort of liked at the time.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened with the clarinet. It was sort of in the background. And I was like, wait, what's this? It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's a bit like a guitar solo.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, there was a build up though. There was like a chugga 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 build up. That was the clarinet as well, was it?
Yeah, that was, like I said, either they were playing with the paddles or it was the breath, but just through distortion. Yeah, it really sounds like a guitarist is getting ready to let loose.
Yeah, like almost like they've just plugged in or just turned up the volume knob and are just touching the strings.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things which is just pure luck that it
Yeah.
sounded like that.
Wow, very nice.
Great job, man.
Yeah, well done.
Cheers.
Bravo.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Okay then. So let's move on. This next one will be me. So I'll play that and then we'll talk about it afterwards. So going to mute the
Great.
mics and let's
wait.
play. Okay then.
Woo.
Great
Nice.
job.
Thank
Yeah,
you very much.
love it.
So I guess we got to talk about the vocal effect first, since it's probably on top of everyone's mind.
Yeah, so I think the best way to describe this is just the vibe that this gave me. So yeah, I got that New Orleans jazzy sort of 1950s Creole Moon thing, and obviously it needed to have that kind of haunting vibe to it. And I suppose in my head, like, I wanted to recreate a kind of private investigators, like 1950s
Yeah.
kind of
That's
thing.
Funny, Mark, I'll just say, one of the notes I just made was how much I like the backing vocals, and I said you can imagine them singing in a smoke-filled bar.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
it
it's
really
got that
comes
kind
across.
of gangstery kind of, and so yeah, he's met up with this, like, I don't know, kind of siren of the night, and
This
he's
broad.
yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's yeah, exactly. And, you've got the old yellow taxis, like, the old 1950s flared arches everywhere and all that kind of thing. That real kind of Dick Tracy kind of vibe, that's kind of what I was feeling. And so it was kind of like, to create that atmosphere of that spookiness, it's kind of like this is the last recording he's made before he's met up with this vixen and the spell of love has been created, sort of thing, and they find it on his desk at the end of the investigation. Do you know what I mean? And there's no
Yeah.
evidence or
Yeah.
anything anyway.
You've really intertwined it with the lyrics.
Yeah, well, it kind of just seemed to fit for me. So the way I did it is, if you imagine like a filmscape, obviously it starts with impressing play, or they find the tape, they press play, and you get the first bit of the story, and then it jumps to the actual scene,
Yeah.
and everything's in colour, and it's got the clarity in, like, you're there in person, and then we get back to the verse, and it's the next little
Next tape. Yeah.
do you know what I mean? And it's kind of, and that was kind of how I saw it, really. And so to get that effect, I'd already done my vocal mix, as it were, and done the overall mix. So this was kind of like an afterthought, really. And so I copied the channel, so I created like a double channel, and then I high passed and low passed it to around about 1K, and then just did a little notch EQ boost at the 1K. Oversaturated it on the distortion, just pumped that up there, right, like to 10.
Yeah, as bad as my clarinet.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, just really overcooked it, and then I used the Waves Factory tape cassette plugin, and
Okay.
Oh yeah, I've got that.
Yeah.
It's good, that.
which gives you that tape start, tape stop, and that kind of mechanical noise
Okay.
Yeah.
with a little bit of the wobble. And then I also used embedded in that Isotopes vinyl to give it all the crackle and the hiss, and it just really worked.
Yeah. No,
so-
it's a really good effect.
No, thank you.
And really good, sort of storytelling.
Yeah, and that's I'll kind of tell a little story here, but I remember a long time ago I had heard a song, and we're kind of sitting in a room full of a bunch of us that did a mix. This is 20 years ago, and everyone's kind of in their versions of it. And the kid puts on his, and he put one of those vocal effects on it, more just radio sound, and we're kind of jamming along, and I'm like, oh yeah, this really works for the first verse, etc. But then he never took it off, and we're just like, oh, like this song was so good, and like it just didn't go anywhere. Which here, because it's on and off, it gives that movement and it keeps you interested, and you're like, okay, what's the next part like, or what's coming at me next. And so this, I think, was done so well.
Thank you.
Like when I heard it, I was just like, that's just a great execution of that style of playfulness and plugins, et cetera, whatever you want to call it, to really drive the story. It's a great job, man.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, totally. And it's well placed with choice of song as well, because you could equally take this effect and put it on.
You can put it on anything. I mean,
Anything,
look at
but
the last one we did. I put a similar kind of sort of lo-fi sound in certain sections of the vocal, but once again, it suited the track. It was kind of
It's a total different.
Yeah,
it comes across completely differently as well. It's not like, oh, that's the lo-fi.
yeah.
vocal.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a different. I didn't use the tape or the vinyl thing on those ones, but yeah, similar kind of lo-fi sound. But once again, it seemed to me that it suited the track, and I think that's the kind of style I go for. Really, is it it's more sympathetic. Is it adding anything? And if it isn't, then I'm not going to put it in there. But at the same time, I suppose, like, unlike Frank's version, like I don't have that same kind of level of creativity that Frank has. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll be more sympathetic, whereas Frank will just be like, I'm going to do my thing, right?
It's every one of these. Frank comes out with some like crazy idea
it's
that we're
real
just
left
like,
field, right? But it works, and you're just like,
yeah.
oh man, I wish I'd done that. But you know, I think that's where we all learn from each other, and that's where this process is good, right? Because too often, I think in this industry, everyone's very much a closed book. And I think this is nice where we can collaborate like this in a way that
totally.
It's not collaborating, but we're just sharing. You know what I mean? And
it's not to be like pretentious, but I'm going to be.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like mixing is, it should be seen as more of a not a personality as such, but its own creative process. Like it's not just about getting the EQ right. It's about, you know, making the song come alive in your sort of own way, really.
I mean, the way I would sort of add to that is it's kind of like, you know, like when you go to these art classes and you've got like 15 people standing there with an easel all looking at the same object. You know, every picture's different, but the object is still the same. The room is still the same. The environment is still the same. They still have the same colours and brushes, and it's the technique, and that's where the mix engineer comes in, and that's where it's good to have. It's good to always play around with the options and not necessarily go with what you think you should.
Yeah, totally. That's a good analogy.
Do you know what I mean? Because you could go, if you're in a metal band and you go to your genre specific metal artist, like, you know, mix engineer to do it. Yeah, you'll probably get a very good mix. But what's to say by going left field and giving it to a folk guy that you're not going to get something that completely blows your mind because it's left field and it wasn't expected? Do you know what I mean? And that's totally. Kind of where that, I suppose, that point comes from with the three of us, is you get to see so many different avenues and different mindsets on the thing, but it's still the same track. We still had the same instruments and, you know, options there to play with. Yeah. But every result is different, and I think that's why I love this process. I love this idea of this show, because it really does highlight that, I think. But,
yeah, totally.
But yeah. And other than that, I did my usual on this. You know, I mixed it in Logic, and then I bounced out the stems, you know, and put it through Luna to get that sort of tape vibe to it and get that fatness to it. And then I put it back in Logic and mastered it and pushed it out there. So yeah, it's kind of
great.
I don't know if there's anything else to add to it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I really like your kick drum.
Oh, thank you.
It just it's that weird balance of warmth, yet still cuts through really well, without being overpowering. It's just done really well. Yeah,
see, when we went to uni, Frank, like obviously we had Jonathan teaching us how to mix and stuff, and there was very much the school of thought of let's do the kick, like the low end of the kick around 90.
Yeah.
Which I've done for years, and then recently I've been on the Produce Like a Pro thing, and I've sort of learnt a bit more about how the old analog desks used to work. So like a Neve console, for example, the low end is normally prefixed around sort of 40 hertz, 40 to 60 hertz. So a lot of records actually had the kick real low down, and I've been starting to mix more and more like that, and I'm really liking that sound of a low end kick, like rather than that sort of modern higher.
Well, often there'd be shelves as well, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So it's like that smooth sort of curve into the low end rather than a sharp bell.
Yeah,
exactly that.
For sure.
Exactly that. And I mean, obviously using the soft tube console one, I've got the SSL, and I've also got the British Class A, which is Neve. And I tend to use them more than anything else really on the mixes, and it's changed how I mix, and it's changed how my mixes are coming out. And I think, if anything, it's made me jump. And this ain't blowing smoke up my own, my own trumpet or anything, but it's I feel my mixes have come on tenfold since using this kit and using those kind of different thought processes about the thing, really. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate that about the kit.
Yeah. Only last thing I was going to mention, which was what I mentioned earlier about mine, which I thought was lacking in mine, not yours. Is the balance of the horns and the brass, like all the instrumentation. I think my instrumentation was just a bit too quiet. Like I found it a bit difficult in a way to
Yeah.
get. I guess I'm slightly more used to guitar music or having some sort of. Even though it had the guitar track, it was quite a sparse guitar track.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't have a big driving, distorted or,
Yeah, exactly. You didn't have a wall of sound, like we
Yeah.
said before. It's all these kind of little parts. But yeah, the horns really gave a nice sort of warmth to the low mids.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're up nice enough. And yeah, if I was to go back to mine, I'd try and bring those out a bit more. But both you guys, I mean, we'll hear Chris's in a second.
Yeah.
But had that really. Which,
Yeah, I found to get the horn section to sit right. Once again, I found that really hard, and that was where I spent most of my time with the mic, choosing the mics. So I'd have the mix, and I'd done the EQ, and obviously I think for me, maybe I'm a bit of a stick in the mud for placement and how a horn or a brass section should sound. And I think that comes from when I was working at the university as the theatre tech there, because I used to have to set up the big band and various quartets and bits and pieces. So I kind of got to listen to it a lot. So for me, that kind of sit right. But then I'd find that there was just like it wasn't popping enough, or the clarinet was too woolly in the mix, and so then I went back to that app and I literally flicked through the mics between each section, between each instrument, until they all just kind of shone. Without having to do too much because once again they were all in the same sort of EQ spectrum. They're all fairly placed in a similar place, a little bit of a pan here and there. But just by changing the mics, it just made them just sit there without having to do anything, and it kind of just give it that 3D effect, and it just was like
I
bosh.
think that's where I might have gone wrong. I think my trumpet pick for the microphone, I picked a fairly bright mic.
Yeah.
But also what I done was I just had the same mic for the trumpets, the same mic for the sax, and the same mic for the clarinets.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
So, kind of to both of you, is there a mic that you ended up picking more than others, or did you notice?
I think I started with, because obviously when you go to the Spell of Love competition and you watch the initial video, once again I'm a stickler for getting a brief somehow, right? So I watched
didn't
the
watch
video.
it.
I'm a stickler for closing my eyes.
Same here.
Exactly. Well, no, see, for me, I'm trying to treat it like it was a client, so I'm trying to get into the head of what they might be looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went there, I watched the video, I watched how he set his mics up, and I kind of copied a similar approach. And then I found for me, like I say, whether it's the processes that I'm running it through or the desk, or all these things add different colorizations to it and different characters to it. So I then found that actually just by flicking through the mics, I tried ribbons, I tried the Coles. I like the Coles. I really like the Coles mics on there. I must admit.
Used them a couple of times.
And the U87, beautiful. Just beautiful mic. I
use that one a lot.
Yeah,
I didn't use that once.
Yeah. So I used that one a lot. I think I used this U67, and I think it was a Royes mic, which is another ribbon mic. I think that's on there.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, once again, it was a case of right, let's just flick through and then just see what fits. I mean, in instrumentation wise, like I think the keys I changed the mic on as well. They just wasn't quite sitting right with the desired ones that they'd gone for.
Right, yeah.
But every other bit of instrumentation just was like that sat right in the mix. Do you know what I mean? I didn't really need to change that. It was just more the texture and the instrumentation bits. The actual melody of the track just wasn't sitting right, and everything was getting a bit woolly and a bit. But just by changing it, I think you can literally hear pretty much every instrument nice and cleanly and its space, and nothing's too much, nothing's too little. But I'm kind of happy with it came out. But once again, probably one of the easiest tracks I've ever had to mix because it was just so well recorded. And even without any of all of the extra gubbins that we did, I could have probably just leveled it out and sent it in and it would have sounded great without me even having to do anything. But you've always got to put your little sheen to it somewhere. So
got to do something.
Yeah,
it's quite my mic choices were fairly obviously I was doing the same thing, just going through listening and picking and it was fairly, there's a few, like I used the 563s the G Fells 563s.
Yeah.
Quite often, which I hadn't actually used before. But yeah, the mic choices. There wasn't one that I favoured towards too much, but I was mainly experimenting with either if it was Omni, Cardioid, or Figure of 8, and that changed quite a bit between the different instruments.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Great.
Cool. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate that. I suppose we'll move on to Chris's one now then.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sure thing.
Waiting in the dark for a lover, spinning silken threads of seduction. The web that she's weaved on this very eve, tainted by the spell of love. She whispered what would be my fantasy. Then she took me to a place among the trees, in the still of the night, underneath the pale moonlight, tainted by the spell of love, of love. She could be the woman of my dreams. I wanna wake up and see her lay next to me. She could be the woman of my dreams. I wanna wake up and see her lay next to me. In the still of the night, underneath the pale moonlight, tainted by the spell of love, tainted by the spell of love, tainted by the spell of
Nice.
Cool. Very nice.
Thanks. So I try to go on for the full Halloween spooky vibe, big
Yeah,
reverb.
I was gonna say this is definitely the spookiest.
Yeah.
yeah.
Spookiest mix.
A couple of the background vocals I could just turn into, full reverb, not even a direct sound. That's why that pre-fader button is there for anyone who's curious on the sends, is just get rid of the direct sound, and all I want is the aftermath. But I've actually got the Pro Tools session open. I'm kind of looking down through some of the stuff I did. Like the one I was super excited with was the piano in the beginning. I put this quarter note delay in it, and it just made it sound huge and awesome. And I kind of ran around the room for a second when I figured that one out. And, the guitar starts in the center, but then pans, hard right, or mostly hard right. Once the banjo comes in, trying to think what else. I ended up using, 3 different reverbs, 2 different delays, channels. I was just kind of throwing everything at it in terms of how do I make it just seem eerie and, just flooded with,
Swampy kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same point, and this is, the tip for people out there is EQ your reverbs and delays, because then you can cut down on all that low and high end buildup, and you actually just get the feel that you want versus getting the true swamp all through it.
Yep.
Every one of my Reverbs and Delays has at least one EQ, and there's a couple of them that have double EQs on them. Just because I was like, well, I like where the first one is, but I need to do another tweak, so just throw another EQ on it. But at the same point, like the delay on the piano, it's only for the intro, so that's automated. You were talking about the snare room. I actually didn't even use that track. I didn't like how much it was kind of rattling after the fact.
Yeah.
What else?
It's interesting about the snare buzz roll, because like Frank used it, but more for accents. I used it because I felt it was more of a feature, and you didn't use it at all. It's just it's awesome.
We like the three bears.
Yeah, exactly
absolutely.
that. It is like where's Goldilocks?
Yeah.
Let's see, a couple other things. Way back in the day, I actually used to play trumpet in school. So when I saw these and I loaded them up, I'm just like, okay, I want to do something fun with it. And so I put some heavy EQ on it to give it, the one a little bit more, just bring out the brass sound of it. Don't really give it a lot of high end or low end. Just, see if I can get that, jazz, New Orleans brass section out of it. And then the one towards the end, I actually try to cut it off more in terms of like, if someone was using a cup mute or something, to just try to give it that kind of whininess without a whole lot of bottom to it, especially because there's so much other bottom floating around.
I was going to say, a note I made is that I really like the trumpet part that you made the focus, which I didn't really hear in mine or Mark's or anyone, some of the other mix I've heard as well.
Yeah.
It's like the lower trumpet part in the sort of chorus area. Yeah. Chorus section.
Yeah, I picked up on that.
It's like, it's almost like I forgot that was there. It's like I didn't even realise that was an option.
Yeah.
and I think some of it all comes down to like how you mix, because kind of like you were saying, I started with the vocals, like the vocals sitting right and all that, and then I went back through the guitars because I knew the banjo was kind of a unique thing, and same with the mandolin. And I did most of the wind instruments last, and so of those I did the trumpet, and then I did the sax, and I came back and was starting to mess with piano, even though that's not a wind instrument. And I got 90% of the way through the song. That was I think it was Friday or Saturday night. Mark and I were talking back, and I was like, yeah, I'm 90% of the way there. That 10% was I hadn't touched the clarinet yet at all. And I was like, I need to fit this in somewhere. But there isn't a lot. There's a little bit of volume automations, moving a couple things around. But overall, I mean, these were such great players that they kind of pulled themselves in and out on their own. You didn't have to do a ton. So if you got the volumes good, I mean, most stuff has got a compressor on it just because I kind of compress everything. But at the same point, you didn't have to do a lot of volume automation to get things to fit right. A little bit of panning, some EQ to carve out some holes, and I thought a lot of it sat real well.
Yeah, any automation was purely sort of
for color.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, so there's this sound, so right at the end, where it goes, waiting for the spell of love. Yeah, I can't sing, obviously.
Yeah.
But it goes really high at the end, vocally. But then in the background, I can't tell what it is. It sort of sounds like backing vocals doing ooze, but I don't remember that being there.
Yeah, there is backing vocals doing ooze.
Oh, there are?
Yeah.
So I just really liked, and I think they were like covered in reverb as well, and it just really thickened up the sort of the swell at the end.
Yeah.
And I really like that. But it almost sounded brassy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm kind of looking at the tracks right now, and you look at the first three background vocal tracks that were the majority of it, and you kind of break it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of like little snippets there, and the first two got bathed in reverb, no direct. The next 4, where it was kind of the call response of like the lead vocals call something and then they respond, those were more direct, less reverb. But then on that 7th one, it fit back again to just do the full reverb, no direct, swell, and it just gave it this ambiance that fit.
Yeah, no, I really like that.
I mean, for me, I have to say, your stereo imaging on this track is amazing.
Well, thank you.
Honestly, like everything's in the right place. It's really nice and wide. Yeah, loads of clarity to it. I love what you did with the harmony vocals as well. Just that real dulled down, but just swamped in that lovely, rich reverb. Also, there's a load of breathiness on the sax again that you just brought out, and it just sounded so warm and rich.
Yeah, even at the end where the sax is just doing that trill at the end, and you can hear the keys flapping, and I'm like, I kind of like it. Let's leave it in, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because that's something I cut out. I was like, I don't want that tapping at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's quite interesting. Your outro, so just after the last section where it's like just a few notes playing by each instrument, just the balance was really good on that. It sounded quite different to, mine and Mark's again.
Yeah.
Like it almost sounded like it was a different take, like as if the players had tried something different. But yeah, it's really nice. I was going to say as well, the backing vocals that you mentioned, where they're swamped or just 100% reverb.
Yeah.
Obviously it adds to that spooky feel, but it's also, I quite like it when tracks go kind of otherworldly.
Yeah.
Like it's not a particular space, it sounds like. It's just like, oh, okay, this is a new
realm.
Realm we're in. So I really like that, just to like take you out of take you out of the New Orleans club.
Yeah, no, and it was, I kind of approach this song as, a lot of songs I approach where I kind of say, okay, if this can get played on the radio every day, is it that quality where I want to listen to it all the time? Where this one, because it is more, kind of seasonal based and, kind of built around this Halloween theme, I was like, maybe this is more, just Halloween centric, and it becomes a seasonal song where I don't have to think about, does this still play well on July 4th?
Yeah.
Or, New Year's Day, or,
yeah, you didn't want to start putting in some witches' laughs.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, I've only just thought of that.
Yeah.
Missed out.
Can we do this again next week? Oh, yeah, no, really well done. Really, really, really like it. It's yeah. I mean, anything else to add, you guys?
No,
No,
that's all I had. Oh, actually, I had one more thing.
Oh, okay.
I said the shaker sounds the most shakery. It was
Yeah.
I really like the
true.
shaker sound.
Once again, though, I think that was down to like placement, like I say, that stereo imaging, just everything.
So yeah, that shaker, I'm looking at it, no plugins whatsoever. It's about a dB less than Unity, and it is exactly the way it is. It was just
Nice.
mix the
It
taste.
just shows, doesn't it? Sometimes it's best to
Less is more.
Just
Yeah.
leave
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like if you don't, that's the thing. I'll kind of impart some little more knowledge to the people who are gonna watch this. Is just, if it doesn't need anything, it doesn't need anything.
Yeah.
Don't sit there and put a whole plug-in chain just because you can put, Pro Tools. We have 12 or 10 inserts, 10 inserts, and then if you go to like Studio Rack through Waves, you can go go super crazy.
Yep.
If it doesn't need it, it doesn't need it. Just
it's quite a difficult thing for, especially new mixers.
Yeah.
You get a track and you're like, okay, I've got to do something to this because either this is what I'm getting paid for, or it's supposed to be what we do. Is like, I should be slapping an EQ on the shaker and bringing out those shaker tones.
Yeah.
But
sometimes, less is more.
sometimes the tones are there.
I phoned you up, didn't I, when I first loaded this track up Frank, and I was just like, I mean, in all the years I've done mixing, I've always tried to take that less is more approach. If it doesn't need it, don't put it in. Like, is it adding anything to the track? Yes, then fine. No, then get rid of it. But like with this, literally, as soon as I loaded the session in, before I'd even loaded the plugin in for the microphones, and just like I say, set everything to Unity, I was just like, what am I supposed to do? It sounds great. It's like, I'm quite happy to bounce this and do a bit of mastering. That will do. You know, it's like, but at the same time, you know, it is a competition, and therefore I had to put my flair to it. But yeah, I still didn't. I felt uneasy doing anything to it, if you know what I mean. It just But yeah, no. So once again, a great lesson there, Chris. Thank you.
Not a problem. Like, and it's where like some of it, like, you know, when we went through it the last time, I didn't have Pro Tools up, but didn't have the session open. I'm like, wait, what did I do again? And so now this time I wanted it as the reference. I'm just kind of flipping through the tracks, and at the same point, there's stuff that has, you know, my vocal chains always end up having 4, 5, 10 plugins, whatever. But some stuff, mandolin has nothing on it.
Yeah, mine's really bare as well.
Yeah, so some of them are hit hard because I was either trying to get a desired effect, or, and like you said, nothing needed help. Yeah, everything sat. It was just, how do I want to get that vision that I'm thinking of like, oh, I want this really brassy trumpet, or I want, you know, this sax that I don't have a ton of low end in, just to cloud up the mix or something like that. So yeah, you didn't have to do a ton if you didn't want to. So
yeah, it's quite funny how quickly I forget. It's like I couldn't remember when there was backing vocals and things like that. It's like once I've closed my session, I'm like, what did I do to that?
Yeah.
What parts are in there?
Yeah, I mixed this over 2 different mix sessions, and like I said, one was, I think, Saturday night, and that was an hour, and I think I did it the week before for maybe 4 hours, and I think I mixed 1 or 2 other things in between there. So it's same as you. I close the session, I'm onto something else, or I'm thinking about 5 other things. So that's why
that can be quite good. That tends to be how I work. Is I do a version of a mix. You know, it may be a complete mix. It may be halfway done. Yeah. And then sometimes I take like a few days. Like this one was the same. It was like I had a week in between sessions just because I was quite busy. And so you come back to it, and it is nice having that time away just for sort of a fresh pair of ears to be like, wait, was I going in any sort of direction?
It is easy to get ear fatigue as well and just completely make the most wrong mistakes. So
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, no, cool. Right. So have you guys listened to anyone else's mixes? I'm just going to throw this one out there and just see what your thoughts are on, you know, other people's.
I have listened to a few.
Yeah.
And there was one that I just listened to before we started, but I probably won't be able to find it now. I commented on it, but it was a sort of half remix, half mix.
Yeah, I think I've heard that one. Yeah, it's good.
It was really good. Really nice. There's some like nice kind of Jimi Hendrix style guitar coming in, and it almost sounded like new brass parts, but it changed the like chordal structure.
Yeah.
And that was quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple that I've listened to that are just like so left field. I mean, even more left field than yourself, Frank. Like, and you're just like, where did that come from? Amazing, right? So, anyone that is obviously likes what the versions we've done, in the description below there are hashtags. If you copy those hashtags and put them into Google, you will find all of the other submissions for this competition. I would definitely advise going and having a listen. There's some really cool ones. Like this one guy did a metal version that then cut back to the original version and then into metal, and it was so well done. I was just blown away by it. Like, wow. And like, where did that come from? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, definitely go and check it out. You know, it's definitely worth having a listen if you want to. Obviously, if you've listened to it enough with our 3 versions, then fair enough.
I think it's easier to listen to when you've done a mix on it, and then you're like, oh, check what other people have done.
Yeah. I try not to. You know, I think, Frank, you're the same way. I try not to get any outside influence until at least I've got that first mix done, and then I'll think about listening to something else.
And then and I'll go through the list.
Yeah.
See what everyone done.
Yep. So I think that's it, isn't it, gents, for that?
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
say
I think
so.
so.
If you was to choose one, I'm not going to choose one, but if you was to choose one, gents, not that I want to cause an argument, which one would you guys prefer? I would
Problem
ask
is-
the audience at this
It's
stage.
tricky,
We've got
innit?
3 people
Yeah,
watching.
I
so-
mean, for me, I would pick parts. Like
Yeah.
my intro piano, like I'm just in love with that. Like I was so excited when that just clicked.
yeah,
But at the same point, like the tape recorder theme through the first verse and later on, that was just a magical moment. It was so
thank
good.
you. Yeah.
And then especially now finding out that it was the clarinet, not guitar solo at the
Oh,
end.
right, yeah.
It's just it's so good, and
I'm
everyone,
just going to use that in everything now.
yeah, absolutely.
I'll have a
like-
clarinet player on retain.
No, just take that same sample and use it on every track. Yeah, melodine it if you need to. Yeah, no, I agree. I think, Chris,
Yeah.
I think it is a case of, I don't think anyone's is particularly the best. I think it is just a case of,
Yeah, it's a really hard one to judge, really. Like it, if it was someone else listening, because they're so sort of different. It's just which one you sort of might
Yeah.
vibe with more.
personal
Yeah.
preference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. But I think it comes down to that as well, doesn't it? With even with the client, it will come down to personal preference over
absolutely.
maybe the actual quality of the end result. You know, it's
And that's why we do pre-production and talk to artists first and
Yeah.
say, what are you going for? What do you want me to reference? And the way that we can get close to what you're thinking of, before you ever hear the first version, and then you hear the first version, you're like, okay, yeah, that's where I want, but let's tweak this, and off and away, we're already 80% of the way there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Frank.
Yep.
If people wish to get in contact with you and have your services, where can they find you?
So they can find me at frankleonardwalker.com, and all the Instagram, Facebooks, all that kind of stuff, Twitter, SoundCloud as well. It's all / Frank Leonard Walker.
Yep.
So fairly straightforward.
Links are in the description below for Frank there as well. Yourself, Chris?
Yeah, same. Links are down below, but Red Oxide Studio. You search that on Instagram, Facebook, SoundCloud, any of that, you'll find where we're at, and you can drop me a message any way that you want. It's also redoxidestudio@gmail.com. So any way that you prefer, you can definitely get a hold of me, and or at the same point, if you come hit me up on Facebook and you're looking for Frank or Mark, I'll get you to the right place. No worries.
Yeah, same here. Same
Yeah.
all round with that. And yeah, obviously myself, marleraudio.com, and also links are in the description below. I'm on SoundCloud, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I can't even remember half the places on one of the Fiverr, Air Gigs. It's just, but you can find it all from the marleraudio.com. There's links to everything from there, and on this YouTube channel actually there's links to it. And obviously, once again, if you are interested as an artist or a band and you wish to be featured and to have a mix done, then please get in contact via info@marleraudio.com, and then we will sort out a date and time, and all 3 of us will mix it. And sometimes you might be lucky, we might get a guest mix engineer in on as well, and you would have, like, say, a section on this show at the beginning there where we would interview you and discuss all about you, really, and just to promote you guys. On that thought, the next Mix Off Monday is on the 9th of November. We have got the band The Goods Gone featuring, and we've also got a guest mix engineer, Addy, coming in. So I'm really looking forward to that one. I'm hoping that's going to be, as good as I have it in my head, basically. But they're a great band. Go check them out. So have a look on Spotify. I stumbled there. Have a look on Spotify. Search The Goods Gone. You'll find them on there. And Hit the Road Music, I think, is Addy's thing, but I will put a link in the description below once I've double checked with him. And definitely go and check out his studio. He's doing some amazing work. Like, I'm really jealous watching his day to day. I think at the moment he's in Agadir out in Morocco somewhere, and he recently just recorded he put video footage up of him recording this violin player in this beautiful house where he'd set microphones up on 3 different levels just to capture the tiled room reverb, and it's just like wow, what a life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this one. Like, I mean, I look forward to all of them, but it's nice to actually have a client that we're going to be all working with, and to have a guest in as well, which should be really good.
Absolutely, should be a ton of fun.
And one last thing, obviously, you can watch this after this live show. This will go onto my YouTube channel, and I will be sharing it. I'm sure the guys will share it as well. But please like, share, subscribe, and definitely hit the bell icon to stay up to date. We're hoping to do 2 of these a month is the idea as we go forward. And it would just be lovely to have support of you guys, and obviously, for future episodes, if you've got any questions during the show, don't hesitate to ask. We will do our best to answer them and engage in conversation with yourselves. And we'd love to know your thoughts on who you would prefer if it was your mix. Do you know what I mean? And like I say, a bit of audience participation and engagement is always welcome. So, and I think that's about it, guys. Yeah. Anything else to add?
No.
Well,
I think that's it.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Frank. I've really enjoyed this.
Cheers, Mark.
It's been really, really good. Here's to the next one.
Yep. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Take it easy, guys.